Okay.
We are now live streaming. I think the clock is a little slow.
Yeah. I'm going by this.
Wait a minute. 1 minute to say.
Okay, we'll get started with the Lancaster Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. We ask that you please first stand and face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Ms. Terranova, would you please take roll call?
Mr. Hain.
Here.
Mr. Michaely.
Here.
Mr. Storr. Mr. Tillmans.
Here.
Mr. Robluski.
Here.
Mr. Zelak. Ms. Monticelli.
Thank you. We have two items on the agenda tonight, 6518 Broadway and 31 Logan Lane. They will be heard in that order. Ms. Terranova, could you please read the legal notice for 6518 Broadway?
Notice is hereby given of a meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Lancaster to be held Thursday, February 8th, 2024 at 7 p.m. local time in the Town Board Chambers at Lancaster Town Hall, 21 Central Avenue, Lancaster, New York. The meeting will be recorded. The items for consideration by the Zoning Board of Appeals at this meeting are: number one, the petition of Bryce and Lisa Blair, 6518 Broadway Street, Lancaster, New York, 14086, for one variance for the purpose of constructing a fence on premises owned by the petitioners at 6518 Broadway Street, Lancaster, New York, to wit, a variance from the requirement of Chapter 400 zoning Section 33, subsection E of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for constructing a fence with the posts and supporting structure of the fence facing the exterior of the area being fenced along the east property line. Chapter 400 zoning Section 33, subsection E of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires the fence posts and other supporting structures of the fence to face the interior of the area to be fenced. The petitioners therefore request a variance to allow the posts and supporting structures of the fence to remain facing the exterior along 85 feet of the east property line.
Thank you, Ms. Terranova. Do we have anyone here from 6518 Broadway? Sir, if you could please just come up to the podium and tell us your name and address for the record.
I'm Bryce Blair, 6518 Broadway, Lancaster.
Thank you. Please tell us about your project.
Well, we put the fence up around the property, and on the east side, the concrete driveway basically is right along the very edge of the property line. So when we put the posts in and put the 2x4, it's a 2.5-inch post, and then an 1.5-inch board, and then the battens that the fence is constructed out of, which would have left a gap along the concrete, which would have been dangerous. So we put it that reverse way, which I thought would be okay, but I find out then it wasn't. So.
Okay. Thank you. Go to the board for any questions or comments. Start with Mr. Hain.
So the fence is already installed?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, can you expand on why it was an issue, why you put it on the other side or
Well,
safety?
we just did it on the one side of the property. The west side, we did it with the good side facing out. And this side, we had to put, there's a concrete driveway, and it's actually about 18 inches high, different in grade from my driveway to the adjoining property. So we put the posts in, and they're 2.5-inch galvanized posts that went in right up against the concrete, and then a 2x4, we need another 1.5 inches, which so that made 4-inch gap along the ground, which was 18 inches above the ground, to make kind of a hole. And we were trying to find a way to fill that without supporting or anchoring a board along the concrete. Would have been a very kind of extensive, so it was put up the way it was.
Was there a fence there before?
There was a galvanized fence there before, yes.
Did you have to file a permit to put this fence in?
Yeah,
before?
yes.
Okay. And then was that permit basically contingent on the post side being on?
No, it was permitted as of right per zoning requirements. Upon final inspection, it was noticed that the one side was reversed,
Okay.
so notification was made, and that's what prompted the application.
Have you spoken to your neighbors about?
Yes, my application had a letter from the neighbor that he was fine with that.
Not sure I saw
I don't
that.
know if we saw that.
Yeah, it's in there.
Maybe my mistake.
It's in there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this one. William Wetland.
Oh. So is the fence, he's at 6520, which is east of there.
Yeah, the adjoining property.
Okay, so he's the side, saying the fence is on the east side, correct?
Yes.
So it's, okay.
I'm good.
Thank you. Mr. Tillman, any questions?
No, not at this time. I think, Mr. Haynes.
Yeah, Mr. Belushi, any questions?
No questions at this time.
Anyone in the audience who would like to address this matter? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Make a motion. Whereas the zoning board of appeals of the town of Lancaster has made the following findings: that no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that no detriment to the nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicants to pursue other than the area variance relief sought, the requested area variance relief is not substantial, that the proposed area variance relief will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, that the alleged difficulty is self-created but not to the extent necessary to preclude the granting of the area variance relief sought. This board has taken into consideration the benefit to the applicants if the variance relief sought is granted as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant. That with the intent and purposes of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimum variance necessary to afford relief.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second. Do the fence part.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. That such fence will not unduly shut out light or air to adjoining properties. That such fence will not create a fire hazard by reason of its construction or location.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Tillman, second by Mr. Hain. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hain,
Yes.
Mr. Michaely,
Yes.
Mr. Tillmans,
Yes.
Mr. Robluski.
Yes.
Thank you. Your variance has been approved.
All right, thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Mr. Nova, would you please read the legal notice for 31 Logan Lane?
The second case considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals is that of the petition of Nancy Hellenbrook, 31 Logan Lane, Lancaster, New York, for one variance for the purpose of installing a generator on premises owned by the petitioner at 31 Logan Lane, Lancaster, New York, to wit, a variance for the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning, Section 15, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for installing a generator 1.4 inches from the side property line. Chapter 400 zoning, Section 15, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires that a generator should not be located within 5 feet of any lot line. The petitioner therefore requests a 58.6-inch or 4.88 feet variance.
Thank you. Is there anyone here from 31 Logan Lane? Hi, if you could just tell us your name and address for the record.
Nancy Hellenbrook, 31 Logan Lane.
Thank you, Mrs. Hillenbrook. Just tell us what you're looking to do.
I want to put the generator toward the back of my house on the side.
Okay.
And that's it. What else do I have to say?
That explains it well enough. Let's go to questions from the board. We'll start with Mr. Tillmans.
So it's going on, that's the, what, south side of the house, right? Looks like from the diagram here. Right, this thing right here.
Yeah, that's one, yeah.
And you can't place it on the north side of the house or in the rear of the house is what's,
The rear of the house is all landscaping, and it's got a large patio, so it would just
okay.
look ridiculous.
So you just don't want to put it
No,
there? Okay.
right.
And then the north side of the house, or the other side of the house, any issues with it going there, or?
No, I think it's not good going there, and it's better on the side, this side.
Okay. 'Cause I,
Yeah, my name is Marty Lancaster.
My brother-in-law.
I'm her brother-in-law, and I'm a little more knowledgeable of what she's...
Okay, if you could just give us your name and address.
Sure. It's Marty Link, 4825 Martingale Court, East Aurora, New York.
Thank you.
Yeah. The premise on the north side requires just terrible piping and whatever to get gas and everything to the right-hand side, not to mention the way it's landscaped and the things that are along that particular side. On the south side, which is where there's vents and, there's a
The
pipe that's coming
dryer
along.
vent in the window.
There's lots of different things, and so the particular place where the installer suggested it needs to go is what requires the variance. It can't be in the back, because there's a deck and other things, concrete things back there, so,
And my bedroom window's right there, so.
well, that's your issue, but the reality is, there's kind of, because of the nature of where the house is placed in the property, it apparently needs this variance to be able to go on that south side.
Okay. All right.
no further questions.
Mr. Muski, questions?
Yeah, so all options were explored? I know we were talking about the south side, and I stopped over there, and I noticed that it was staked out already, where the generator's gonna go. I think it has beam stakes.
Right,
And I think what's over there, I don't know if that's an air conditioning unit,
right.
that's along that side. Now, on
Yeah.
the north side, that kind of looked wide open, but you're saying the landscape there would make it difficult to
And
put up?
plus, it's so wet over there.
Okay.
I mean, the ground is always wet. I mean, it's awful.
Well, and the north side does create more of an issue, I think, with the generator and the operation of it, because it's constantly pretty much in the shade, which
Okay.
is not an issue electrically or gas-wise, but, and where it is, to get the piping and the whatever I know from putting in my own generator, and I had to run 80 feet of black pipe. And if you've ever done that, it's like incredibly expensive. I mean, it pretty much doubles the cost of the installation. So, and not to mention, you know, the things on the other side, which you'd have to remove a lot of the side plantings and everything else, where on the south side, it's very accessible, except the location has to be in that particular area.
Now, did the company are you putting this in yourself, or is there another company that was
The
doing?
company,
No,
yeah.
Did they look at that other side as well, or no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
They looked
at it,
Yeah.
and their
It said-
assessment was the best placement is where it is by the nature of the other surrounding functions of the house, you know, at that point.
And I think the way the property is, it's like your neighbor's kind of on an angle compared to your house, so it kind of makes like a little triangle.
Right.
So, okay. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Hain?
Do you know the approximate distance from where that generator is going to be placed to the house at 29 Logan Lane?
The next door neighbor, you talking about?
Yeah.
I think I can answer that question if you don't have it, because I did a little measurement just
Did you?
on Google
Oh,
Maps.
okay.
So, if you don't mind me here, according to Google Maps, and give or take a little, it'd be, in the location where you're talking, it would be just under 20 feet, about 19.685 feet.
Yeah, it's not close to the neighbor's house.
So it's close to the property line, but not to
Not
the
close to
neighbor's
the
house. Unless did you have the answer as well? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but,
Yeah, no, I
okay.
agree with that assessment, it's probably about right.
I'm sorry.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah,
No, I see what you had there. You know, we've obviously faced this in your community recently. A number of residents have come to us with these generator installations, and I think they've probably pretty much all been the same contractor.
No, this is, I think, a different one from, the other one was Ditzman or something?
Nonetheless,
Next door is the
yeah.
same guy.
Yeah, I think we have to weigh the impacts on your neighbors more so than maybe the costs for the installations. So your location is a little bit different than some of the ones we faced in the past, but still you're looking at going to the closer neighbor side as opposed to the farther neighbor side. And it kind of impacts both of you the same. The noise, the exhaust, and whatnot. So it's a challenging decision for us.
Yeah, the difference is the neighbor, the direct neighbor on the south side, his bedroom and living space is really more on the south side. So when it's running, and by the way, it doesn't have to run but 10 minutes every month, if that. And, you know, forgetting the cost, my sister-in-law is, you know, gloriously turning 80 in April, and she's, you know, single and lives alone. I live 20 minutes away, and we know in the wintertime that 20 minutes can be 2 hours, so I can't get there. And with her medical conditions, part of the reason for, because I'm the guy pressing for the generator, is part of it is she, from a health standpoint, she needs to be in a warm environment. And when the power is off, that little house gets freezing cold in a matter of an hour or two. So that's the general purpose besides the cost side.
Completely understood. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm good. Thank you.
I would just make a comment, so I think it's really, it's the south side. It's a little hard to tell over there because the street curves.
It's not
But
due south, it's more
it's-
southwest, yeah.
So it's the south, I'm sorry, it's the east, it's really the east side. It's the east side. It's the, right?
Well,
It's hard to tell because the street.
Yeah.
Yeah,
street
without
curves,
without
yeah,
a
yeah.
So it's to the
compass,
south.
it's hard to tell what
Right.
it's called. I would call it the
So,
south side.
because here's what I'm getting at. If this was to be approved, it would be, you may know that there were, in the past few months, there were 3 other from your complex who came in here for the same thing. Your property is different because it does have a substantially larger buffer between your house and your neighbor's house. That's what makes this different. However, if this were to be approved without conditions, we'd have to make sure that you would not put it somewhere else, put it up, which I know you don't want to, but if we approved it and then it was put closer to the street, it would still be the same, it would still be just a few feet from the neighbor's house.
With that angle, yes, you're correct.
Yeah.
No, there's no reason why we would move it from where this fellow
Okay.
has determined it to be.
So once we could figure out, or north, south, east, west.
Have you, you mind if
Yeah, please do.
have you talked to the neighbor there that's at 29 about this?
I did tell him that I was going to do this.
Okay. And what was the response to it? Just,
No, he didn't say anything.
Okay. Do you have any other board questions right now? And do we have anyone in the audience who would like to speak about this? Sir, please come on up. We have someone in the audience, if you could just step aside and let.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
sure.
you, thank you, ma'am, thank you, sir. Hi, please give us your name.
Excuse me, Robert Russ, 29 Logan Lane. I'm the neighbor that'll be next to the generator. I've got concerns about noise level. It's right outside my living room window and my dining room window. Now, in the summer, I tend to have those windows open for ventilation. Most of my daily life is living room, dining room, kitchen alongside the generator. It's really too close to my house, and with it being two-story buildings, it's just going to echo the noise even more from the generator. I think a better alternative would be in the back, around the corner of the house, like the rest of the neighborhood has them installed, or if possible, on the north side where there's no adjacent homes whatsoever. I'm just concerned about the noise level impacting my life. I brought some pictures that I took of some of the other houses if you,
If you want to, Chairman, that's good. Let's just start, if you want to pass it around and show it to.
okay, this shows the north side where this house is farther back. This is all open space here.
Who's on the other side? The place is close to that.
This is the gap between our two houses.
Okay.
Here's the flags currently here. This is the edge of my house.
Maybe you could, sir, Mr. Ross, I'm sorry, maybe if you could, is there a way you could show us all at one time, so you don't have to explain it 4 times? Yeah, if there's a,
All right, this is the north side.
got it right now. Okay, yeah.
Huddle up.
All right, the north side. This is all one large open lot here.
Right,
There's no adjacent homes. This is my house. This is Nancy's house right here.
That's in the front.
Yeah. This is looking down the sides.
We go a little bit like this.
It's a little bit of a
Yeah.
V.
Okay.
Here's the flags where they're currently at. This is the edge of my house, the front edge. Here's another view of where they are. So just figure my house is right here. Now, these are some pictures I took of neighbors across the street where the placement is. They're all located to the back side of the house, around the back corner, which will muffle the house, the noise somewhat,
Yep.
because it's not echoing off an adjacent structure.
Okay.
So I asked that it be moved from the side of the house.
Why don't you, if you just go back to the podium, so for the microphone.
So I'm asking that it be moved from that side of the house, outside my living room, dining room windows, around to the back corner.
Okay. Which would be the east side?
It'd be the east side, no, the west side.
I think the back of the house would be the west side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Matt, this is putting you on the spot, but I do that often. If it was, is the property line, so if it was in the west side behind the house, would it still need a variance?
No, if we were to keep it 18 inches from the building, there's ample amount of room for that. I'll also point out too, in what is now identified as the multifamily mixed use, formerly CFR3, MRC3, patio home communities, condo communities, HOAs that were established to identify zero lot line properties had certain parameters in place that predetermined locations of air-conditioned units, generators, outside satellites, right down to, not being able to grill in your front driveway. You have to do it in the backyard because of the proximity of the buildings next to each other on these zero lot lines. So whether or not it's going to, anything in the offering plan of the HOA might restrict that, that's entirely a civil matter. But just so that this board can keep these things in mind, we've experienced several patio home communities being developed, they're built out. A lot of these individual lots are now utilized as the full expanse of the building footprint. So, they're more or less zero lot lines, so there is no room for any other additional accessories. So again, those are some of the parameters in the multifamily, tighter density and, allowing for more green space type of housing.
Okay. Super, thank you. So if they did do it in the back, if the variance was denied, they could do it in the back and
Easily,
not do
yeah,
the
yeah,
variance?
and it's more conducive to the neighborhood.
Yep, okay. Thank you. So, sir, any other thoughts?
No, that was my main concern, was the noise level. I know they tend to run weekly for a test period until they're needed, and then they could run for hours. And I just prefer not to listen to that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Would you care to, anybody else in the audience would like to address this? No? Sir, ma'am, would you like to say anything else?
Well, basically, what I can say is you can set these things to never start up unless the power goes out. Mine happens to be once a week. My neighbors, once every 2 weeks. You can set them up once a month. They run for maybe 7 or 8 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah, and that's about it. Now, in the winter weather, and which is 9 months of the year around here, windows are generally closed. They really are not that noisy. I don't even hear, after a while, I don't even hear my own running. In fact, I hear my neighbors more than I hear mine, just because of his placement of where it is. I don't see where in the world it would ever go in the back. I mean, the back is nothing but walls and patio at that point. So I don't see how it would, unless it's far enough away from the building. If it was, now it is out in the open, which basically, to my mind, creates just as much opportunity for some noise, not to mention aesthetically looking bad. So that's kind of basically it. And I understand, I'm not unsympathetic to that, but the reality is most of the time when it's going to run is in the dead of winter, when you guys are having your 4 feet of snow, et cetera. And that's kind of our main purpose, really, for doing that, requesting that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Do it. Whereas the zoning board of appeals of the town of Lancaster has made the following findings. An undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that the detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought, that the requested area variance relief is substantial, the proposed area variance relief will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, that the alleged difficulty is self-created but not to the extent necessary to preclude the granting of the area variance relief sought, that this board has taken into consideration the benefit to the applicants if the variance relief sought is granted as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant, that the intent and purposes of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimum variance necessary to afford relief. The petitioner failed to carry the burden of establishing that strict compliance with the zoning ordinance would cause practical difficulties rendering the property unusable. That denial of the variance does not deprive the petitioner of the ability to install the generator in another location that would not be outside of the code.
Okay. Do we have a second? I'll second. Roll call vote, please.
I just want to point out that a yes vote is a denial.
Correct.
Mr. Hain,
Yes.
Mr. Michaely,
Yes.
Mr. Tillmans,
Yes.
Mr. Roblewski.
Yes.
Denied.
sorry, the petition's been denied.
Can I ask a point of order question?
Sure.
If I am not within requesting or needing a variance, in theory, then I should be able to put it wherever we want on that property?
Yes, if it doesn't require a variance, if it's not within 5 feet of the property line.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anything else? Move good. Anything else from the good of the order? I would like to just bring up one thing. We did have this past month, we had a former zoning board member, Dan Butler, pass away. Dan had been on the board when I started. He and I sat next to each other in 2 chairs over there for, I think, 2 years. And he was just the type of guy who was passionate about his community, who would speak out and tell you what was right and what was wrong. And we need more people like that. And ask if we could just please have a moment of silence in honor of Mr. Butler. Okay. Good motion to adjourn? I'll make that motion.
Second, Carrie. Meeting is adjourned.
Dan Butler. U-B-U-T-L-E-R.
Dan Hales, but I